that's so unbelievably fascinating to me, because if we stepped off the planet and just looked at the wide range of evolution that has been taking us on this collective journey of individuating, and a world, that a society that has been totally influenced by our sense of this need to be an individual, this need to right. But now that whole idea of individuation is really about becoming aware of the creative power of your being, of your soul, and taking charge of that, and really realizing how precious the power of the soul is. And I don't mean it religiously, I mean it's your creative force. But it becomes more precious. And I believe the deeper intention is to say, now that you have learned how to stretch your muscles, now you have to go and do this on behalf of the whole, on behalf of the group. If you can't sit in your own world and think it's just about you. It's this era of co-creation. And you have to get the mystical laws. What's in one is in the whole. A rising tide lifts all ships. You have to work on behalf of the whole, and not on what you can take from the whole, but what you can give to it. And so I think those ideas that formerly were very animated, like I have so much power. I'm the center of the universe. I need to be heard. I need blah, 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 blah. Those are getting de-animated. And so I think a natural consequence is to feel there's nothing I can do. Well,
that's so important, that de-animation, because that's the shift between when Neptune shifts signs. Again, the energy leaves something completely, but hasn't yet lit up the true nature of what it's coming to wake up.
Right. And that's our whole sense of co-creation. We're all in this together. That's actually where we're going. But this in-between is very vulnerable.
It's very vulnerable. And also there's the issue we talked about yesterday of timing. Where and the connection of the new, again, if Neptune in Pisces is about this sense that we are a cell in a body, that everybody on the planet is connected, and that just falls away as if we never felt it. No, that's not how it works. Normally how it works is we take that insight, that inner experience with us into the new energy that's awakening. But right now it feels like we're losing it. That's being erased. It never happened. And some people would love to erase it. Okay. And one of the things is Neptune also wakes up this idea of a new God, that the new divine, and there are these people who take on a godlike aura under the guise of the change of the archetype. And because the Fool is in there, because we don't know what to believe in, we don't know what's true anymore, we don't know what's solid anymore, that sometimes we just follow the new thing thinking, well, that's it, let's go. And it's not at all what it appears to be. So there is there's, especially in the period before Neptune shifts completely into Aries, which is the end of January next year, we're going back and forth. And there's this idea of, again, using the Fool's wisdom to see where things are not making sense. It's really important that the Fool's special gift, the Fool's way of seeing the world, helps us in this back and forth time, which will last another 11 months. Yeah. So I have a slide here. Carolyn, can you stay with us?
Sure.
Can we look at this slide? So the next one. Okay. So Neptune connects us to invisible realities, to the ineffable, the image behind, but it's easy to lose our way and to confuse the imagined for the real. Okay.
Well, I mean, when I think of Neptune, I think of the god of the water, of the god of the sea, and
Neptune.
and how well you see underwater,
Mm-hmm.
and that it's very difficult to chart a course I mean, barely see your hand in front of your face underwater. And now Neptune is leaving that and moving into an air sign. And it's kind of like the collective going up from having lived underwater for 11 years. And all the and what can you create when you're in a Neptunian fog? You know, when you come up and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, where am I?
Oh, everything is on fire.
Right.
What it feels
Everything
like.
is, I mean, it's a, excuse me, uh, but when you get into Aries, a fire sign.
So, yes, and we want to look at the next slide
Right.
while you're saying this, because you'll see Aries rules the head.
Right.
Oops, go back. Right. So there is Aries rules the head. And one of Elon Musk's company is creating something called the Neuralink. Have you seen this before?
Right. Yeah.
Now, in theory, if you plant it into somebody's head, it's going to help that blind people see. Of course, but that's not really what it's about. It's about planting into somebody's head so they can connect to
and be controlled.
Connect
and be controlled
or control the internet, what we now call the internet, but it's actually a connection with AI that is going to be made, which will create, which the people who are looking at certain things want to create superhumans who are merged with all the intelligence of the world. And this has just been approved by the FDA to be used in people. It's been experimented with in animals, but it's been approved to work with people who have dysfunctioning brains to see that if it can activate the brain. There's nobody who's actually volunteered to have this done, but with Neptune and Aries, I think they're probably
going to happen.
It's going to happen. It is
absolutely going to happen, and it's going to be seen like what a great achievement we can now, and not realizing you're getting a brain implant to have other people control you and give you instructions.
Well, not other people, to have AI control it, to have
artificial intelligence.
Yes. In other words, it's with the idea of making, it's the idea of, on one level, the idea is making, we're going to help people we're going to do something that hasn't been done before. And this is why I quoted Erasmus here, who wrote a book called In Praise of Folly, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
An incredible book. An incredible book, and all his friends thought the church would condemn him, but they all thought it was really funny. So he could have gotten burnt at the stake. But he said there are some people who live in a dream world, and there are some who face reality, and then there are those who turn one into the other. And this is Neptune. Okay, this is Neptune. There are some people who live in a dream world, and there are some who face reality, and some turn those into the other. So we are being given an image of what's new, of a new idea of what it means to be human, or maybe an idea of what it means to be more than human. And this is what I mean by Neptune creates new gods. Okay. But in doing so, could in fact lose.
Well, see here, this brings up a whole nother, I don't know, question response. And that's, it's
a horrible image. I'm glad that Jack.
Right. But it's really, do we have the moral, ethical bandwidth to handle the technology that we have? And without even considering that question, I mean, if you like giving nuclear power, and the first thing we do is kill, right? as soon as they get on the cusp of a brand new era, which it was in going into the nuclear era, it
Mhm.
became the means through which everybody else was, every country was controlled with threat of annihilation.
Mhm. Yeah.
We Technology becomes weaponry
Mhm.
for the human experience. And that's my great fear as we look at this.
Well, and this is the Mars function. The Mars function is how can we win with this? How can we rule with this? How can we dominate with this?
Precisely.
That is,
How can we control people so that they serve us?
or more, how can I do what I want without anybody interfering with it or stopping me from doing it? Because essentially, Aries is really about that. It's really about how can I do what I feel drawn to do, and no one will ever stop me. And we see this model happening right now in front of our eyes.
Mhm.
Okay, but it's an old Aries model, and Neptune is not yet in Aries. Okay, so we're seeing it coming in, and we're seeing the old dominance model being called in because human beings, when they are on the verge of a world they don't understand, that overwhelms them, that is chaotic, that is impossible to stop, that's what they do.
That's right. They become more controlling, especially, and chaos scares people. Change scares people. So they're willing to compromise. How much of my power do you want to make everything stop being crazy?
Right, that's right. And but chaos is, and all the original myths tell us that everything emerges out of chaos.
Right.
Right. So one of the things that's coming here is each of us, when Aries is activated, what we have to see is which is the archetype that you have felt listening to this today. And this is the first time I've worked on Neptune in Aries. So it's really a first entry into it. Okay. And I've been thinking about it for some time. But which is the archetype that's woken up in you? Is it a heroic? Is it a I must do something?
Is it a
Or
warrior?
is it warrior? That might be, but warrior, what kind of warrior? I
Mhm.
mean, Neptune says you have to find many different ways. You're not going to do it the way people did it in the Civil War. No matter how idealistic you felt, or no matter how sure you felt about what you were fighting for. Okay. And we can also think of what was lost. You know, I was showing you images of Paris, but a large part of the south of the United States lost its history as well. A lot of history was burnt to the ground. The whole way of life. Very large numbers of movies have been built on nostalgia for what was lost, and yet the new had to emerge. It had to come.
That's
It
right.
was
That's
time.
right.
It's
That's right.
time. And part of that new were people testing their strength afterwards in the West, going out, joining militia or mining or taking the trains out to discover undiscovered territory. So the Neptune and Aries continued in other ways. It doesn't just stop with the battle. But for some of us, it's almost this idea of, well, I don't know. I'm just going to. This is what Ivan does in the story of Ivan, whose sister in law comes and tells him to go sit on the porch with his bread.
Mhm.
He goes out and he does his thing. And actually, there's a small devil that's been sent, and the whole goal is to create dispute among the brothers. And Ivan goes out and he's plowing the field and he hears, ouch, and he pulls this thing, and it's this little devil. And he says, what are you doing here? You really, it's about to hit him. He says, don't hit me. I'll give you what you want. And um, you know, he asks, his dog is sick, so he asks for help healing his dog, and the devil says, dig under here and you'll get three roots, and you can use those for healing. And then he says, would you let me go now? And he said, now I'll let you go with God's blessing. And there's a woof, and the devil disappears into a hole in the ground. So this happens several times. And Ivan keeps doing things and running into troublesome little devils, and his brothers keep asking for more and wanting more. And Ivan says, sure, go ahead, take it. And one day the devil says, well, I'll show you how to make gold, like that third devil. And he's like, okay. And he looks and he says, how'd you do that? And the devil tells him, and he says, now will you let me go? And he said, well, no, but you have to show me this first. And again, he says, okay, you can go with God's blessing. And whew, the devil disappears. So then the king's daughter, the Tsar's daughter, is sick. And, Ivan's digging in the field and he takes his hat off and out falls one of the roots. He's like, oh yeah, I got this thing that heals people. And he goes to the court, and as soon as he walks in, the Tsar's daughter is healed. And the Tsar announces this is a wonderful thing and that Ivan will marry his daughter. Ivan's like, great. So the story, the fool who doesn't stand up for himself, who does all the work, who gives the fruits of his labor to everybody else, who does everything, ends up by paying attention or by asking the right question with exactly what he needs. So sometimes the Neptune and Aries archetype is to follow a path that doesn't look like it's going anywhere interesting. It doesn't look like it's going head on into conflict. But it's listening to something, listening to a spark, a fire, a flame in the heart. And I need to put up an image, because here's the whole.
Oh, don't you love these old images? Oh.
And if you look at this clearly, this was another image in the exhibition at the Louvre, which was really stunning. And you can see the Fool. The Fool has a little staff, and there's this kind of funny little weird figurine on the top of the staff, because the Fool was like the king, but his staff was the jokester, the trickster. On the top of the staff. And you can see him just wandering blindly through the country, but because there is nothing he is filled with, because he is empty. Okay, the original word for fool comes from the bellows that are just empty. They're just empty with air, but they make the fire go. The Fool can be filled with something. So I think what's very important with Neptune and Aries, while the warrior archetype and the bully archetype will both be strong under Neptune in Aries, the empty space of waiting until we know where the flame will come wakes up something where we find something that
has to be awakened.
Something that has to be awakened. Absolutely.
Speaking of something that has to, it's time to just share what's going to be in the next class.
Oh, really?
Yeah. A world dissolves and a new vision arises.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to take that on class 3.
Yeah. This time, it's a complex. A world dissolves and a new vision arises, because what is dissolving and what's changing, it's not just that Neptune is entering a new sign. It's entering a sign with Saturn, the planet that describes the structure of our universe and the structure of time. It's really remarkable.
What a year we're in, huh?
What a year we're in. And Saturn and Neptune come together every 35, 36 years, right? So 36 years, what we're seeing is a whole cycle of belief, of faith, and we're calling in a new vision of the world. And that's why it's so important at the moment to have our attention on this
Yeah.
and to have our attention on something that can come in, not just reacting to what we're seeing out there, because then we're in a fool's paradise,
Right.
because people are showing us things while they're picking our pockets.
Lynn, this actually was a magnificent class. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did, because it's fabulous. Thank you, sweetie. Thank you.
You.
And thank you, everyone. And we'll see you for class 3 on Tuesday.